Good evening, folks, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. Welcome back to another Tuesday live stream. We have Artibus on the stream. We have John O'Sullivan. Great to see both of you. Dan is here. We also have Mark Teffler. Great to see you. Woods by Me is on. Great to see you. Who else have we got? We've got Young Ralph. Great to see you. Colin is on. Killer, thank you for moderating once again tonight. Who else have we got? We have CGM moderating as well. Thank you so much, CGM. Roshin is here. Great to see you. We also have Raven 1983 Witch. Great to have you on tonight. We also have Alistair Kerr. Great to have you on, Alistair. Hope you're well up there in Scotland. 91 Leeds is here. Great to see you. Jim Stephen is on. Great to have you on, Jim. Chatty Rat is here. Great to see you. Who else have we got? We have... we also have people are just joining, I believe. Countdown to Power, Casper is on. We have also Rod is here, great to see you. Mark Leslie is on, great to have you on. Who else have we got? Viking President Stu of Stewland, great to see you. Hope you're well tonight. Only One Tubing, great to see you. The Tories are split because Sonic is Reagan Elite, great to see you, Reagan. Hope you're well tonight, and well done on the live streams you're doing. Great work. Shell is here, great to see you. We also have Asperger's Europe, great to see you. Richard is on. Prince Marsden, great to see you. Oh no, Richard Marsden. I saw Prince Who Knows. Sorry about that. And so many more. Hope you're all very well tonight. Hope you had a nice weekend and you're ready for another week of madness. So let's start off with this really good summary of the debacle with Michelle Mone. Now, who the hell gave Michelle Mone advice to do an interview? Was it Prince Andrew or someone like that? It's like, what, you know, what was she trying? What was she thinking she was going to achieve? The public hate me. They believe I'm corrupt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give an interview to the media. Alexa, it's great to see you on the stream. I'm going to give an interview to try and convince people that I'm not corrupt. I'm not a liar. Have a listen to this.
This is all about contracts that the PPE equipment that Michelle Mone and her husband made a lot of money out of. She admitted in an interview at the weekend, or they stand to make some money. And it turned out this equipment didn't work properly, and now she's being sued by the government. Now, the claim has been that from the government's political opponents that the proper processes were not followed here. She is denying that, and what has happened in the last 48 hours is she really has come out fighting with an interview, on a television interview. It's described by some as a car crash interview, because she admitted telling lies and then said it's not a crime.
She's like, I was defending my family. Well, you were lying. Well, I was defending my family, so that's not a crime. And I was only lying to the media. Like, that's not a crime. It's not a crime to lie to the media.
Now hitting back at the Prime Minister. So the Prime Minister, along with Oliver Dowden yesterday in television interviews, have said how serious they regard this. This was the Prime Minister speaking earlier today during a visit to Lossiemouth Air Base up in Scotland.
The government takes these things incredibly seriously, which is why they're pursuing legal action against the company concerned in these matters. That's how seriously I take it and the government takes it, but it is also subject to an ongoing criminal investigation, and because of that, there's not much further that I can
add. Why did the Tories get into bed with these people? Why did these people get into bed with the Tories? Well, they got into bed with the Tories because they were planning to make a lot of money out of this VIP lane. Now, who was in this VIP lane? Was it just donors, or were there other people? And what connection did they have to the Conservatives?
Well, that prompted Michelle Mone to hit back with a barrage of tweets attacking the Prime Minister and indeed Michael Gove, who was Cabinet Office Minister at the time of the pandemic. Now, she, in first of her tweets, talking about the PM, said this: "What is Rishi Sunak talking about? I was honest with the Cabinet Office, the government and the NHS in my dealings with them. They all knew about my involvement from the very beginning. Later on, in further tweets, she said, does Rishi Sunak stand to profit from...
Oh, but at the beginning she said she had nothing to do with this. Now she's saying, well, they knew that I was involved. Well, which is it?
From the very beginning. Later on, in further tweets, she said, does Rishi Sunak stand to profit from the Moderna COVID vaccine during the pandemic? I suggest he might want to take that incredibly seriously before pointing fingers to save his own skin. Now,
It's like rats in a sack. It's like, once again, you have this infighting. So finger pointing, Rishi Sunak pointing the finger at her, her pointing the finger back at Rishi Sunak, and they're all dirty. That's the thing. Everyone within the Conservative Party, or pretty much everyone within the Conservative Party, were involved in this in some way, it seems.
Michael Gove's involvement in all this is the fact that it was he who she contacted making this offer. He claimed in an interview with Sky News a year or so ago that he went through, she should go through the appropriate civil...
I'll just respond to Raven 1983, which, can they take away life peerage? I think it requires an act of union, an act of parliament. So it would require the government pushing through a legislation. It would be backed by every MP. I don't see a problem there. But it would, it might take time. So I think and of course it'd be extremely embarrassing for the Conservatives to have to take this measure. Because it's one of their own they'd be getting rid of, because she was appointed by David Cameron back in 2015.
Civil service channels. He referred it to the appropriate civil service channels, he said. In actual fact, he referred it to another minister, Lord Agnew, who later spectacularly resigned at the House of Lords dispatch box over loans for COVID PPE being written off. So she has stirred up this row, first with her TV interview and now with these tweets, and the government is on the defensive. There's only one day left before Parliament breaks up for Christmas. Will the opposition get a chance to raise it tomorrow? They didn't today.
Hopefully they'll mention it tomorrow. Alistair, thank you so much for that super chat. Sunak in Scotland, only in an Air Force base, so he wouldn't be hargled by Scottish people. Now, what is it? A helicopter, Max? Yes. No, was it a helicopter? Probably helicopter. No, that was an airplane behind him. I don't know if it was. Let me see. Here we go. I don't know if it was his airplane or it was just a Royal Air Force aircraft. But yes, this is once again embarrassing for the Conservatives, and the only way I think they could get her out would be an act of Parliament. So, and of course that would be a big issue, and probably. I don't know whether Rishi Sunak wants to go with that. It would be another distraction. It'd be a sort of distraction from his current disaster, but it'd be an embarrassing distraction. And I don't think he wants to go down that road. He'd be hoping that she would just leave herself, but she doesn't seem like the type. We're going to come back to this in a moment, but I want to look at some other stories. Here is something I really need to respond to, because this is deeply frustrating. So why is the NHS, why is it the NHS isn't the envy of the world? So this is Wes Streeting responding to questions on Sky News. Wes Streeting is probably going to be the next health secretary under a Labour administration. And what he says here is not very encouraging.
Some people might describe as kind of hard truths about the NHS. You've run in with GPs a bit before. You've described them as GP leaders as blocking progress. I mean, do you see GPs as like vested interests when it comes to the NHS?
No, I actually see them as critical to the future of the NHS. We need more GPs. We need more activity in the primary care system, and that's GPs working alongside a whole range of other professionals. And we've got big commitment to trial new neighbourhood health centres along the same lines as Australia, where I was just a couple of weeks ago, looking at their model. I do run up against sometimes opposition to reform in the NHS, and I think one of the things I've seen change over the last couple of years as Shadow Health Secretary, when I started out and emphasising reform...
Who's opposing? You say you run up into opposition. Who from?
Well, I think that there are people who sometimes hear the word reform and think, oh, God, like, is this going to be another top-down reorganisation? Is this going to be privatised?
Who work in the health service?
I think people.
It's not the first thing I think of. The first thing I think of is cuts, is costs being reduced. This is what I think about when I hear about reform. President Stu, thank you so much. That's super chat. Bunatali Max and Mrs. Max, Tanti Aguri. Tanti Aguri to you, Stu, as well. Thank you so much, and have a Merry Christmas and a wonderful New Year. Thank you so much for that. I will probably have a live stream just before Christmas on the 22nd, so but I'll get a chance to wish you Merry Christmas again. Gareth, thanks so much for that super chat as well. Michelle Mone, I did nothing wrong, and even if I did, Rishi did it more wrong than I did. Therefore, I'm absolved from doing nothing wrong. That Rishi did more wrong than me. Confused me too. Well said, Gareth. And welcome back, Gareth. I haven't seen you in a long time. Hope you're well. Yes. Rishi did more wrong than I did. I think this is going to go back and forth a bit. As I said, I don't see her going quietly. I think she'll cling on. If she thinks she can hold on to that seat in the House of Lords, she's going to do it. She's suspended at the moment, but it's not a permanent suspension. So anyway, back to West Streeting.
In parts of the health service, also sometimes general public sometimes hear reform and they worry that it means privatisation. And I'm really clear about that. I don't want to see the NHS privatised. I want to defend an NHS that is free at the point of use.
Now, this is my real bugbear with this. What he's saying here is a little bit slippery. He's saying, I don't want to see the NHS privatised. I want to see it free at the point of use. Now, that, on the surface, sounds okay. Well, of course, he doesn't want to see people having to rely on the private sector. No, but there is a difference between relying on the private sector as a patient and relying on the private sector as the NHS. So the NHS could still remain free at the point of use, but it will be a case of patients from the NHS being sent to the private sector. So the private sector are still working within the system. So he's not rolling back. I'm not getting the impression that he's going to roll back the privatization within the NHS. It's just you're not going to see it. So you'll be sent, if he's saying it's going to still remain free at the point of use, I don't see how that's going to happen if you're not going to massively invest in the NHS. This is what I'm afraid of. This is a bit of smoke and mirrors going on here. I hope this is not the case. I hope I'm wrong, but he's not talking about investing more money in the NHS, and he has mentioned in the past that Rachel Reeves, who will be the next Chancellor, or unless the Tories have another Chancellor before now in the next general election, but will be the next Labour Chancellor. And she's not talking about switching on the taps. She's not talking about pumping money into the NHS. Actually, they're talking about the opposite. They're talking about we can reform it using technology, and we don't need to. We can rely more on the private sector, although they don't mention that too much. But they talk about reform. They talk about using technology. They talk about restructuring. This is concerning, because what the NHS needs is massive amount of investment to undo the damage the Tories have done over the last 13 years. Because a lot of the waste is in the private sector. See, that it's the NHS gets the money and then they spend huge amounts on the private sector. So, for example, if the NHS can't get nurses, they have to rely on the private sector, agencies. And the agencies charge through the nose. So the NHS still get the same nurse, but they're paying maybe 3 or 4 times for that nurse. Well, if the nurse was available to them to hire directly, they would be saving a huge amount of money. But they need to be able to access the nurses, and they can't at the moment. Gareth, thank you so much for that super chat. Rishi Sunak, stop the moans. Make it stop. That should be his new 6th pledge. After stop the boats, stop the moans. Although she has a boat, so if you could stop that boat, at least if you could stop that boat, he'd be doing well. Thanks so much, Gareth. Alistair, thank you so much for that super chat. NHS is in danger with this guy, Max. he seems to be an advocate for using the private sector. He has mentioned he's talked before about, well, we can use the private sector to fill the gap. There's a massive backlog. What we need to do is we can use the private sector to ease the backlog. But this is a bit of a I don't want to say lie, but it's stretching the truth a little, because there's a finite number of nurses available. And it's not the case of, well, what you do is you just rely on the private sector and they will fill the gap. There aren't nurses available. So this idea that you can just rely on the private sector isn't really true, because what's happening at the moment when it comes to doctors, dentists, GPs, not so much GPs, but doctors, dentists, specialists, is that they have their GP practice and they have their private practice. And if they're working in one, they're not working in the other. So you have a limit. It's not a case of, well, we just hire more, we just rely on private sector doctors or private sector nurses. Generally, you have a very limited number, and you're either using one or the other, either the public or the private. There isn't spare capacity. And this is where I'm very worried that what he's talking about here is, yes, the NHS will remain free at the point of use, but the private sector will have a bigger role behind the scenes.
In order to do that, we need to modernise. And what I've been learning from in the last couple of years are some areas of outstanding practice in the NHS.
Just want to respond. Can it be saved with the state the economy is in? I'm worried everything is so far beyond repair that they can't pour money into it. Mike Clark, and this is a legitimate question, Mike, and thanks for asking that question. There is no alternative. I'm afraid the alternative is you end up with a private system, private healthcare system, a bit like the US. You either end up with a situation where the NHS... the NHS will need more money. And of course, the economy will be in tatters when Labour take over. But they have to prioritise the NHS, they have to prioritise education, and they have to prioritise the social safety net. Everything else has to be cut in order to achieve that. Now, the government can raise finance, they can borrow, they can increase taxes. Labour are not talking about doing these things. They're talking about not increasing borrowing to the extent that the Tories are doing at the moment, and they're a bit cagey when it comes to increasing taxes. So it's worrying about how they'll need to fund the NHS. They can't do it through the non-dom tax status. That's just about £3 billion. It's a drop in the ocean. So, and I think they've already earmarked some of it for free school meals or something like that, breakfast clubs or something like that. So, and hiring a few nurses. We're talking about massive investment, and the only way you could achieve that is through borrowing or increasing the higher rate of taxes, like what Scotland did today. Scotland introduced a new tax bracket, which is going to raise a lot of finance. Now, of course, the far right and the Conservatives will say, well, this is going to drive businesses out of Scotland. This will drive people. This will punish hardworking people, people on over £75,000 a year. You know, they can afford to pay a bit more in tax. It will help a big fat tax, Max. Yes, a big fat. That's what you need. If you want to fund the NHS. Because what the alternative is, you don't fund the NHS, and then it will collapse, and then you'll end up with a private healthcare system. Because people need healthcare, and you'll end up with a two-tier system where, like in the US, where you have health insurance and you get treated. You don't have health insurance, and you don't get the level of treatment that you deserve, that you need, and then you have this in between where people have. Like car insurance, with car insurance, anyone who has a car understands, do I insure the windscreen? Do I insure this part? Do I insure the car on the street? Or do I, you go through your policy deciding how much you can afford, and you eliminate certain things. It's a bit like that in the US. You don't want a healthcare system like that. Aki's Man, thanks so much for that super chat. Remember, it's Jenny's birthday tomorrow. Mind and send her a message if just to tell you I told you. Yes. Remember to send us random Scottish history if you can. If you're not following her, check her out on YouTube. Random Scottish history. So she is a wonderful YouTuber from Scotland. Covers all interesting historical facts about Scotland. And she's doing tours with Akismad at the moment. So I will definitely send her a message. And I hope everyone will too.
But it's also exceptional practice. And I've got what my challenge will be if we win the election is to take the best of the NHS to the rest of the NHS and also learn from other countries in terms of how they are.
This is an alarm bell. Now, look, this sounds good in practice. In theory, I should say. This sounds good in theory. Oh, look, we should look at how other countries do things and then we can emulate some of that. Now, what people may generally think is, oh, you want to copy America. No, well, I hope that's not the case. But even if it's sing happy birthday, I will do it tomorrow. I'm not doing it preemptively. That'd be bad. That's bad luck. And I've been caught out singing happy birthday on people's non-birthdays before. But no, so when he says about copying other countries, as I said, it sounds good in theory, but the problem is every country has a healthcare system designed for that country. So those respective. So for example, in Italy, we have a different system to the one in France. In France, there's a different system to the one in Germany. Now, they have good and bad, but I think trying to copy another healthcare system from another society is not really a good idea. Look, why copy something? Why fix something if it isn't broken? The NHS, in a sense, isn't broken. It's been damaged by the Tories through privatization and underfunding. So how do you resolve that? Well, it's quite simple. You invest the money, you deliver the money it needs, and you roll back the private investment, the private sector within the NHS. So you provide the NHS with the nurses it needs, so it doesn't have to rely on agencies and doesn't pay through the nose. You invest in social care so that the NHS doesn't have to provide for social care. So mental health, you provide support, enough investment for mental health so that the NHS doesn't have to provide also for that. The NHS is providing for things that it's not designed to provide for. And that's not the NHS's fault, it's the Tories' fault. Dave McGinn, thank you so much for that super chat. In Scotland, we don't mind higher taxes to maintain our better social contract with the Scottish government than they have in England. Yes. So I think a big problem in England, and this is not a criticism of English people at all, it's the problem of the media. The media are convincing people that higher taxes is a bad thing. That taxing the rich is a bad thing, because if you tax the rich, they'll leave. They don't. Their assets are in the country. They can't move their assets. Okay, you can't pick up an office block and move it. You can't pick up tracts of land and move that. So, and I think it was Gary Stevenson who we had on the Sunday roast some time ago. He made a very valid point. It's, you tax their assets, you tax their wealth, because they can't move that. So, when the rich say, "Oh, if you tax me, I'm going to leave." Well, they don't really do that. Michelle Mone might be the exception, but she was planning to leave Scotland anyway. She had said that if Scotland voted to leave the Union, if it voted to be independent, she would leave back in 2014. Well, Scotland didn't vote to leave, and she still left. so that was nothing to do with tax there or independence. But yeah, if you look at the Scandinavian countries, higher rates of tax, but a better level of service. That's what you want. I think that's what most people everywhere want. They're willing to pay more in tax if they believe something good is going to come in return. What the Tories are doing is they're cutting public services, and they're also cutting taxes for the rich. So people think, well, higher taxes with crap public services, then what's the point? Thanks, David. We have also a super chat from Wolfpet. Thank you so much, Wolfpet. Streeting is a weasel, takes money from private healthcare, as does Starmer. and most disappointing, Yvette Cooper, who takes a very large slice of priority at healthcare, aid healthcare cash. I don't know about Yvette Cooper. I know that West Streeting has, I believe, received donations in the past from healthcare companies, from private healthcare companies. And of course, this is, when he talks about free at the point of use, free for who? Is it free for the NHS? Is it free for the patient? Because it may be free for the patient, but the NHS may be paying for these private healthcare services. And what you need to do is you need to roll that back. But we don't hear anything like that from West Streeting. Instead, we hear how, well, we need to work with the private sector, that they can pick up the slack. And then once everything is resolved, then we won't rely on the private sector anymore. It doesn't work like that. Once they have their nails in, they don't give up. They don't walk away. If they think there's money to be made, they'll remain there. Thanks much, Wolfpet. I'm worried if Yvette Cooper, because Yvette Cooper is somebody who we would be hoping is willing to stand up to private interests.
Designing and delivering healthcare, because there's so much to learn from around the world. And having spent time looking at continental European countries, looking recently at Singapore and Australia, it's not the model of funding that needs to change in terms of the free at the point of use publicly funded service. It's the model of care. And when I ask the fundamental questions, why is it the NHS isn't the envy of the world? Why are our outcomes so much worse?
Because of the Tories.
And it's because we run pretty much top of the table for spending in hospitals. But you look at primary care, community services, mental health, diagnostics, we're either near the bottom, at the bottom, or seriously lagging behind.
Okay, but why? Why is that the case? Because the Tories haven't invested in it. Because they have relied on the private sector. I really wish somebody would call West Streeting out on this. What is your opinion of the use of the private sector? And unless he condemns it, then I'd be really worried. But I don't think he's going to condemn it. Because what you end up, if you go down the road of the private sector, what you'll have is expensive surgery being covered by the NHS and cheap, profitable surgery or operations, interactions with patients being covered by the private sector. So the private sector will go after where it's lucrative, and they'll leave the expensive, complex surgery, which is maybe not profitable, to the NHS, and you'll end up with a two-tier system. Or you end up with an American model, which is even worse. Anyway, let's move on. So we have just a few stories have dropped here in the last few minutes. Peter Bone responds after Wellingborough voters remove him as an MP. So in the past few minutes, Peter Bone has issued a statement after 13.2% of his constituents voted to remove him from office. I thought he was really popular. He keeps going around saying, well, when I go knocking on the doors, the story is we need to get rid of these immigrants. That's what every constituent tells me. The recall petition was triggered after the former minister was suspended from the Commons for 6 weeks over accusations of bullying and sexual misconduct by a former member of staff. The recall petition is triggered when an MP is suspended from the Commons for at least 10 days. In his statement, Mr. Bone said it was bizarre that there were only 10% of his constituents to sign the recall petition, but acknowledged that it must take place. He was like, why would anyone sign a petition? They love me. And I love them, maybe in ways that they don't like me loving them. David, thanks so much for that super chat. The Scottish Government has today once again committed to keeping Scottish NHS in public hands. I think I don't know about the Welsh Government, but I know that the Scottish Government is probably the only one in the UK that is seems committed to keeping the NHS in public hands and not willing to work with so much work at all or work as much as NHS England is with the private sector. Stormer's Barber. Hi Steve, I love New Zealand and my heart breaks that you have a Conservative government again. I'm still in love with Jacinta. Random Scottish History, great to see you on the stream. Hope you're well. I'm not going to say anything. It's tomorrow. He went on, I would like to thank those people who have contacted me to offer their support. Why would people offer? He's a dodgy groper, it seems, from across the political spectrum. From across the political spectrum, so people even from the Labour Party were like saying, "Don't worry, Peter Boner, Peter Bone, we believe you." Bonehead, I should have said, not the other word. Anyway, it has been the most kind of so many people who have taken the time to contact me. The recall petition came about as a result of an inquiry into bullying and misconduct towards an ex-employee, which was alleged to have occurred more than 10 years ago. It's 10 years, it's in the past. Forget about it. Isn't there a statute of limitations on groping? These allegations are totally untrue and without foundation. He did not say whether he'd be standing in the upcoming by-election, but added, I will have more to say on these matters in the new year. So he probably will not be standing. Like if there's, what's the chances of him winning his seat again, holding on to his seat? Pretty much zero. It'd be extremely embarrassing. And this is another by-election that Rishi Sunak can do without. Willingborough is ready for change. Reaction. So Labour have come back and said that they're going to try and win the seat. Let me see if I can just have a quick look. Let me find. Don't find the. Let me see. Peter Bone. He is the MP for Wellingborough. Let me see the constituency. Yeah, he won it with an 18,000 majority. So, yeah, it's probably going to Labour at the by-election. It's probably going to Labour. Yeah, it wasn't a great majority back in 2017 either. So. Yeah, it's traditionally conservative, although Labour won it back in 2001. So Peter Bone held it since 2005. But no, it's generally conservative. Peter Fry, whoever that was. So it's it's looking looking likely that it will switch to Labour. Bye-bye election. Yes, it's a bye-bye election for Peter Bone. Couldn't have gone to a better candidate. So let's one more story before we take our break. Another potential by-election coming up as well. Tory MP Miriam Cates under investigation by Parliamentary Standards Watchdog. So yeah, here's another MP that's in trouble. Allegedly she brought Parliament into disrepute. She's embarrassing Parliament. Boris Johnson lying to Parliament was not enough of a reason for him to be sacked. The Tories running roughshod over parliamentary parliamentary procedures, that's not enough. What the hell did she do that she significantly damaged the reputation of the Commons? Must be a huge amount of money she was taking or something like that. Anyway, guys, let's take a short comedy moment and we'll be back in just a jiffy with some more serious stuff. Hope you enjoy this.
Colin from Portsmouth is on the line.
I am sick of all these woke people ruining this country.
Who are the woke people, Colin? Who are they?
Who are the woke people?
Yeah.
You know full well who the woke people are. I've got the list right here.
You've got a list?
Yeah. The Guardian.
Right.
Pronouns. The lawyers. Teachers. Doctors. Nurses. The EU. The NHS. The Church. The British Army nowadays. The BBC. Match of the Day.
Yeah.
Gary bloody Lineker. James O'Bleeding Bryant. Disney. Pride. Police cars with inclusive signage. Hollywood. The City of Liverpool. North London townhouses. Jordan Henderson. Pre-2023.
Yeah.
The National Trust. Almond milk. Modern historians. Remote working. Places where people feel safe. The weather. Children's books. The England cricket team. The menopause. Banksy. Coots Bank. Breastfeeding. Butterflies. People who want to be paid a living wage.
Right.
People who think their children should eat.
Yeah.
Universities, secondary schools, nursery schools, being able to swim in UK waters.
Yeah.
Kettle chips. Valentine's Day, King Prince Charles, David Attenborough, Professor Brian Cox and the laws of physics, guide dogs, theatre with a live sign language person at the side of the stage.
Oh, yeah, agreed.
Immigration centres that put pictures on their walls, Sadiq Khan, International Women's Day, the RNLI, croissants, people who read stories while wearing women's clothes. Every one of those is a threat to Western civilization. Anyway, mate, thanks for having me on. Love to the family.
Love to the family, Colin. Love to the family.
Avocado!
Yep.
Oh my goodness. I think that's an old one, but it's a good one. Going from one madness to another in a moment. But it's UBI is not didn't make the woke list. Yes, King Prince Charles. That's the best. Oh my goodness. Okay, so Richard Medley. I'm a huge fan of Richard Medley. He said this in regards. So what's happening at the moment? So Yemeni rebels are fighting the Yemeni government, and they're also getting involved in the current crisis in the Middle East between Israel and Gaza, and they have been attempting to hijack. They have hijacked one boat, I believe, and they've been attempting to attack military vessels in the Red Sea and in a number of areas near Yemen. And so the response from the West has been, okay, what are we going to do about this? Let's set up a body, let's set up an organization to work in tandem with governments in the Middle East, but also European and Western governments, to create some sort of force that we can send to the Red Sea to protect these commercial vessels. And this is what Richard Medley had to say about it.
Basically, a bunch of warlords are coming out of Yemen into the Red Sea on board small boats and on drones, and they're landing on tankers and terrorizing the crew. And I just find it extraordinary that we could win the Battle of the Atlantic against German U-boats and torpedoes, but we can't seem to protect our shipping going up the Red Sea.
Yeah.
Basically...
Honestly, is this guy serious? Is this guy really this serious? Let me respond to Garrett. Let me check. There wasn't another one I missed. Sorry, Gareth, I almost missed your super chat. Thanks so much, Gareth. Once again, my man went shopping for a life insurance policy a few years ago. A company took one look at her ailments and said, no chance. Now imagine if we were in a situation where she needed health insurance. Scary, yes. That's really worrying, because it's in the US that there was the issue of pre-existing conditions. So some people were denied health insurance because they had pre-existing conditions. It seems the Democrats tried to overturn that, where they would force the companies to provide for people with pre-existing conditions. But it's extremely worrying. Thanks so much, Gareth. And more people need to be aware of what the Tories have been doing when it comes to healthcare, and what maybe the Labour Party are going to do with it need to be scrutinised much more closely. Back to Richard Medley here. He wants the British Navy to start a submarine war in the Red Sea, and I'm not sure that's a great idea. Does he understand how many ships were lost in the Battle of the Atlantic? How do you respond to this? It's comparing apples and oranges. So yeah, let me see if the comments are still there. Somebody mentioned about he thinks he's basically Alan Partridge. I had a submarine war in the Red Sea on PlayStation 2. Somebody also mentioned the Spanish Armada. How does this guy have his own show? How the hell is he on TV? He just comes up with the weirdest things, the most idiotic things, and he doesn't think, like, okay, why do I think it's a good idea to compare, battle in World War II with what's happening now? Send Mone's yacht. Yes. I would Mone on it and her husband. Maybe they give them a rifle or something. Maybe give them a sporting chance. Oh my goodness. Anyway, let's move on from this madness. Housing. So it seems Michael Gove wants to do something about housing, but he doesn't want to deliver speeches in the House of Commons because, well, that would be a bad idea. Instead, what he does is deliver speeches about it to the media. So Michael Gove threatens action, but what is he threatening to do? So Michael Gove threatens action against English councils over housing plans. See, the government are caught in a bit of a fix because what maybe Richard should stick to anything, but anything that doesn't involve using your brain. So the Tories are in a bit of a fix because what they're trying to do is they're trying to keep homeowners who are normally the Tory backbone, the party backbones, the people who always vote for the Conservative. Try to keep them happy. But in order to keep them happy, you need to keep the number of new houses and developments low. Because they're worried that, if I have my house, I want to pass it on to my children, or I want to sell it at some stage, I want to make some money out of it, and I'm worried about house prices. Now, if a huge new development springs up next door, then the value of my house may drop. So if I think my house price is going to drop, and I'm a retiree, and I have, spare time, I can organise in my community to put pressure on the local MP, Tory MP, to make sure that the development doesn't go ahead. Now, that's one side of the argument. The other side is the pressure that younger people, and not just younger people, but also older people who are concerned about their children not being able to get on the property ladder, are putting on the Conservatives at the same time, saying we need to build more houses because young people and middle-aged people even can't get on the property ladder. They can't afford to buy a house. Many people can't even afford to pay rent at the moment. So you need to build more houses. So the Tories are caught between one section that they didn't really care about because they didn't vote for them, but now is changing because this generation cares, like their parents or grandparents are worried about their children, grandchildren getting on the property ladder. So they're putting pressure on the Tories on one side, and then on the other you have the traditional voters who are saying, if you go ahead with new developments or whatever, we're going to vote for another party, maybe the Liberal Democrats. So Michael Gove is trying to weave his way between the two, it seems. Michael Gove will threaten to take action against councils that miss deadlines to submit their housing plans in a speech on Tuesday designed to highlight the government's commitment to build new homes across England. So this is, of course, an attempt to win back support. Look, we're going to deal with the housing crisis. We haven't been doing anything over the last 13 years, but just a few months before a general election, we're going to fix the problem. Trust in us. Does anyone trust them anymore? The Housing Secretary said will say that he will call out local authorities that fail to publish their future development plans with a threat to intervene if necessary. However, Gove will also confirm the government is watering down housing targets, a move that industry sources say will dampen the effect on building across the country. So you need to build more houses. Michael Gove is saying, I'm going to call out local authorities that don't publish their plans, but at the same time, I'm going to water down the housing target, which they've already failed to reach before. It's estimated that the UK needs about 300,000 or 400,000 new houses per year, and they're not even reaching 150,000. So every year you miss the target means the target becomes bigger and bigger. A source at the Department of Levelling Up Housing and Community said, we've been clear that the government is on the side of builders and not the blockers. Councils must play their part and deliver the homes this country needs without concreting over the countryside. So it's a case of passing the can, blaming someone else. That's what the Tories are renowned for. It's always somebody else's fault. There aren't enough houses. It's the councils. The councils need to build more houses. But the councils need money if they're to build more houses. And it's not just a case of, well, they need to legislate as well. Yes, the councils need to provide more planning, but in order to do the planning, they also need resources there. But also, the Tories are trying to say, we want to build more houses, but not in green areas, on the green belt. Now, the green belt is not just, when we think of the green belt, we think of, forests and rolling hills and fields and corn and stuff like that, or fields of wheat, as Theresa May used to run through. That's not the green belt. That's part of the green belt, but the green belt can also include some built-up areas. So it's a bit of a misnomer when they use the term green belt. But the Tories need to convince certain older generations that, well, we're not going to build on the green belt because we're not going to chop down forests and stuff to build houses, because that would look bad. So they're trying to pretend that they're not going to build on the green belt, but at the same time they're going to reach their target. But they're not going to reach the target. This is all it's all a gimmick. A source for the development, the Housing Secretary has already told councils that they need to step up, and we are providing a lot of support to help them do so. So those that continue to drag their feet can expect the government intervention, to face government intervention. Cove's speech caps a year-long consultation into the government's national planning policy framework, which Gove hoped would kickstart house building in England, but which he has yet to rewrite under heavy pressure from backbench Conservative MPs. Yes, but the ones who don't want any new developments. Maybe the Mones can catch the Red Sea warlords with the bin bag butterfly nets out of date face masks and DIY chains made out of child size rubber gloves. I want to see that movie. It would be worth not getting the money back for the PPE if we could see that movie of them doing this. A sort of, Michelle Mone MacGyver, Mongiver sort of episode. I don't know if anyone's familiar with MacGyver from the 1980s. Give him a box of matches and a chair, and he'll turn it into a bomb, or a weapon of some sort. Could build houses in more attractive buildings. They could build houses on bridges. A clock tower can be affordable flats integrated. Perhaps make a distinctive artwork or a futuristic flat. Yes, Kevin. Well said. Yes, there are so many possibilities. The problem is land. The problem is the cost of land as well. So what you need to do is you need to have proper planning. I think the government could say, well, okay, let's build a new city, a new town. So what does the town need? It needs supermarkets, it needs doctors' facilities, medical facilities, it needs a train station, it needs create the infrastructure, and then you'll be able to create a nice society. Put everything nearby. But as you said, there are huge opportunities to redevelop areas that are that can be reintegrated. So as you said, affordable flats integrated with other buildings. I imagine there are a lot of derelict buildings that could be redeveloped as well, and the government could create grants for that. But of course, that requires money, and the government don't want to spend money. Max, all the empty spaces into flats. Yes, so flats are not turning office blocks into flats isn't the best thing, but you could use, if you got them from the inside and then redevelop them. Yes, you could. A lot of it has been now used for emergency accommodation, which is not a good use of. It's okay for emergency, but not for long-term use. But yes, as you said, Alistair, and switch disused office space, because more and more people are working from home. You're going to see a lot more empty office space. Turn that into affordable housing, but of course upgrade it to a certain level which is suitable for housing. Moses by Mone parting the Red Sea. You deserve it. I think that's a super chat of the night. Moses by Mone parting the Red Sea. PP arting the Red Sea. How long did it take you to think up that? Well said, Gareth. Thanks so much for that. Okay, when it comes to councils, pressure being put on councils, well, the councils are already in a bit of trouble. Councils warn of higher taxes and reduced services after disappointing government funding settlement announcement. So councils in England have warned that they could be forced to reduce services and implement tax rises for the coming financial year as they criticise the level of funding provided by central government. I think this is a disaster coming down the road. There's a disaster coming down the road also for the Labour government, because they're going to you're going to see the Tories going, oh, look at all these councils closing down as the Labour Party take over. It's the Labour Party's fault. Anyway, the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities has announcannounced that funding available to councils will rise to more than 64 billion next year, up from 59.7 billion in 2023-24. It said the councils will receive a minimum 3% uplift in core spending power, the amount councils have to spend from a combination of government grants, council tax and business rates. But councils across the country have already warned that the settlement does not go far enough to help councils who are facing bankruptcy due to increased costs and pressure demands. Councils are facing huge problems, for example, when it comes to social care. Councils are relying more, their social care services are more and more reliant on councils, and councils have less and less money to spend. And social care is becoming more and more expensive because with an aging population, more and more elderly people are living longer, so they require more care. And the population of the elderly population is increasing. So you're seeing people live longer and more of them. And this is putting extra strain on social care. And as we know, if the care sector can't find the workers they need, then they need to pay higher wages. They pay higher wages, this cost has to be passed on to the councils, and the councils are already squeezed. Since 2020, 7 councils have issued at least one Section 114 notice, which means that all new spending, with the exception of protecting vulnerable people and statutory services, must stop immediately. And if you don't have public services, and then of course, this affects society, clubs for young people, services for the community. If this is all cut, it's going to result in antisocial behaviour, and then crime, and other social issues. And then of course you're not going to have enough policing, and it creates all. If you put the money in at the beginning, you resolve a lot of problems extending from those core issues. So it's extremely worrying because the councils don't have enough money.
I'm in love with my future.
The future for many, though, looks uncertain and the present bleak.
Our underfunding this year was £118 million.
With council funding depleted, services are on the brink.
Who's going to be the person that they're calling at midnight if it's not us?
And along Britain's streets, everyday life can be a fight.
They are basic human rights and necessities, and people are having to fight for that.
But I know better than to drive you home.
Welcome to gifted young Gravesham. Almost every night, teenagers in this corner of Kent have somewhere to go and explore their potential.
And this is my drawing of David in ballpoint pen, which is one of my favourite works.
For years, their core funding has been provided by Kent County Council. 2 weeks ago, it got cut, all £100,000 of it.
So we work in one of the most deprived areas in the country. Okay, so we already are facing young people with needs. We've got young people that don't have clothes that fit them. We've got young people that don't eat properly. So we feed them, we clothe them when we need to. But on top of that, we're also, you know, we've got antisocial behaviour. If you've suddenly got nowhere for young people to go, you're going to see antisocial behaviour increase for sure.
And there you have it. So this provides a necessary resource in the community, and now they have to cut it because the council don't have the money. Why do the council not have the money? Because the central government are not providing the council with the money they need. The Tories have no problem spending £300 million on Rwanda. They had no problem giving over hundreds of millions of pounds in dodgy contracts to their donors and to their friends. But when it comes to the councils who need this money, sorry, we don't have anything available.
Sure.
Think that will cost more than 100 grand?
Of course it will. Yeah, without a doubt. It's going to be 10 times that.
Along with selling Christmas cards to raise money, they're now applying for grant after grant. But every other charity that's had their funding cut too is doing the same.
We used to be able to give such a good service to young people. So I feel a bit like crying now. So, but yeah, it's all gone. And I just think it's the wrong move, Paul. It really is. You know, it really is the wrong move. These young people are being failed.
Today, the government announced an increase of 6.5% for local council budgets in England. Kent's overspend, though, is nearly 10% of their annual budget, £118 million.
This building's on the market. I'm afraid we can no longer afford to run it.
Cuts are going to have to be widespread.
There isn't a single area that we're not having to touch. And we are going to have a list. And then we're going to go through that list and we're going to have a look at areas where we can save some more money.
How terrified are you of looking at that list?
Oh, I'm dreading it. You know, and people joke about sleepless nights. I don't think there's a morning where I don't wake up at 4 o'clock thinking, my God, could we do this or could we do that?
The reason, he says, social care, which eats up 70% of Kent's budget. The blame, says this Conservative council leader, is national, not local.
We've had a Conservative government for 13 years. Have they made your job any easier?
In the last 2 or 3 years, no, they haven't. They've made it really, really difficult. We're underfunded, we're undersupported, and I really don't think that they understand the role of the local government.
They don't care about the role of the local government. They don't care about it. They would prefer to see it blamed. Oh, look, there are all these problems. It's not our fault. It's not the fault of central government. It's the fault of local government. And they're not. And they don't seem to want local government to work. It seems to be the case that they don't want to spend the money either because they don't understand that it's necessary to spend money. They see it just as a waste, or they would prefer to see this conflict because it helps them win seats. So I think there is this conflict between the MPs who want to see, look, we're the ones who are going to fix the problem at central government. And you have the local councillors who are saying, you don't understand what's going on. We need this money. We need to be able to... And I think there's very little difference between Labour councillors and Conservative councillors in this respect. They both understand we need money because people come banging on your door saying, you know, why aren't you providing funding for this? And as was pointed out, social care is the real thing, the real problem here. The councils provide social care. So if 70% of their budget is going to that, and it's going to just increase, because as I said, the population is getting older, it's living longer, it's requiring more care. And the Tories just don't seem to understand that or care. Guys, let's move on to another story before we finish for tonight. There's the Pope.
Continuo a ricevere da Gaza notizie molto gravi e dolorose. Civili inermi sono oggetto di bombardamenti e spari. E questo è avvenuto persino all'interno del complesso parrocchiale della Santa Famiglia, dove non ci sono terroristi, ma famiglie, bambini, persone malate con disabilità, suore. Una mamma e sua figlia, la signora Navda Khalil Anton e la figlia Samar Qamar Anton, sono state uccise e altre persone ferite dai tiratori scelti mentre andavano in bagno. È stata danneggiata la casa delle suore di Madre Teresa, colpito il loro generatore Qualcuno dice è il terrorismo, è la guerra. Sì, è la guerra, è il terrorismo.
So he has come out and he has condemned this as terrorism. The Israeli government have responded quite angrily. You know, what other way can you describe this other than terrorism? Shooting innocent civilians, shooting people in a church. Now, the Israeli government have responded by saying we don't have the full details, and it's a war zone, so there's nothing we can do about it. But we see almost, you know, on social media a lot, and you know, social media is not the best place to find this information, but we see a lot of it going on. We saw it even outside social media where 3 hostages were shot dead by the IDF. They were waving a white flag. So if you get shot while waving a white flag, what are you supposed to do? What is the way to not be shot at? And of course, these were Israeli hostages. What happens to Palestinians who don't have white flags, who are not speaking Hebrew? When they were allegedly, these hostages were speaking Hebrew when they came out of wherever they were coming out of, waving a white flag, and were shot dead. What will happen to the soldiers who do this? What will be the response from the Israeli government? Gareth, thanks so much for that super chat. Start with cuts, ends with 3 teens joining ISIS. I mean, do we not learn anything from the plight of Familia Bougam and her poor friends? Well, yeah, it's so many social problems start with cuts to public services. That's why it's so important. Thanks so much, Gareth, once again. That's why it's so important that the new government, invest. What I said at the beginning when it came to health services. What is the point of a government if it doesn't look after the health, the education, and the social safety net of its citizens? Like, you can cut other things. You can cut the military. You can cut the size of parliament. You can cut investment, maybe. I don't agree with these things, but if you're going to cut something, do not cut healthcare, do not cut education, and do not cut the social safety net, because these are fundamental to every society. As I said, I keep saying, what's the point in having a government if they don't invest in these things? Israel's Supreme Court rejected human rights groups' request to declare it unlawful for soldiers to shoot at unarmed civilians. My goodness. Insane. It's just insane. And unfortunately, I don't see any solution here. I don't see any way out of this. It just seems to get worse and worse in Israel and Palestine. There's no end in sight, unfortunately. Moving on.
Suspected are.
So in Ireland, just to cross the channel, not the channel, across the sea, Irish Sea for a moment. Okay, I'm going to get a slap on the wrist for that. Sorry, I was thinking of France I don't know why. Anyway, crossing the Irish Sea for a moment, suspected arson attacks. Will anybody be held responsible? So what's happened a few days ago, or I think a couple of days ago, in Ireland, there was a hotel that was being used, or had been used. I don't know the full details. It was either being used or it had been used for hosting asylum seekers, and it was burnt down. It seems that it was suspected arson.
Arson attack on a hotel in County Galway that was earmarked to house asylum seekers. Helen McEntee, the Minister for Justice, has been speaking about this afternoon. Take a little listen to what she had to say.
This was arson, and any type of crime like this, it has a strong penalty and people need to be held accountable. I want people to feel safe in this country. I want those who seek international protection to feel safe, but I also want them to know that they are welcome if they choose Ireland as a place to be protected. And I think the vast majority of people would hold that and share that same sentiment. There is absolutely no justification for what happened. To blame government, to blame anybody other than the person who set a match to that building is wrong. There is absolutely no justification here.
The Minister is going to forgive me, but I don't have great faith that anyone actually will be held responsible or held accountable. And I'll tell you why. Because it keeps happening. It's not just County Galway over the weekend. It has happened in Rooskey in County Roscommon more than once. It's happened in Buncrana in County Donegal more than once. It's happened in Rosslare in County Wexford and in Ballinamore in County Leitrim, Moville in County Donegal as well has seen a similar attack, as has Ballincollig in Cork, Kill in Kildare, Roscahill in Galway and several places around Dublin City and County. And do you know how many people have been held responsible? How many have been held accountable for all those acts of arson? 0. Not one. Not a single person has been held accountable. So I won't hold my breath waiting for somebody to be held accountable for this latest attack or the next one or the one after that, because you'll generally find when people keep getting away with something, they will keep doing it.
Fred Saul, why are the people not being held to account? Why are these arsonists getting away with it? Well, is it because the Garda Síochána, the Irish police, don't have the resources? Is it because people don't know who's doing it? Why is there no investigation into this? There must be forensic evidence. There must be witnesses. There must be talk. You know, a lot of these things. Surely, the police, the Garda Síochána must be following. You know, they must have intelligence. If they don't have intelligence, then they should be investing in intelligence. You know, joining these Telegram groups. These far-right Telegram groups, you're guaranteed that there's some people on there boasting about doing this because they want a name for themselves. I'm the one who burnt down this building. I'm the one who attacked these asylum seekers. I'm the one. They want to show off what they have achieved, and if they think they can get away with it, they're going to be even more brazen when they promote themselves on social media or on WhatsApp groups or on Telegram groups. So the Garda Síochána should be infiltrating those groups and finding out who these people are and investigating and following these people and building a case against them. But they're not doing that, it seems. Why are they not doing this? Is it they don't have the resources or they're not interested? Like, what is the problem here? They get the young teens to do it, I bet, so that these folks can't be named. That's possible. Here's a few quid. Go and set fire to this building, or go and set fire to this building. We'll give you an iPhone or something like that. That's possible. But somebody is taking responsibility for it for sure on social media or in some of these groups because they want to appear like they're standing up to the government. But it is pretty pathetic, and the government's response seems to be always, we condemn this, we're going to make sure it doesn't happen again, whoever did it is going to be held responsible. And they're not. There's a very serious problem brewing in Ireland at the moment because the issue of immigration is being handled very badly by the government and political parties. So some of this stems from housing. So what's happening is there's a housing crisis. Asylum seekers are coming in, and the government is housing the asylum seekers correctly, but they haven't built enough houses over the last number of years, social and affordable housing. And what it's done is it's created resentment, and it has allowed far-right groups to take advantage of that resentment and to stir that resentment and egg on that resentment. So what's happened is people are seeing asylum seekers come in. They think the asylum seekers are driving up the cost of housing. They think that they are getting on the housing ladder ahead of Irish people, and this is creating resentment. And you have, of course, elements who want to increase that resentment for their own political purposes. Farage-type figures. And the government's response is, well, what the government's response should be, okay, we need to deal with the housing crisis, start from the source. But they don't want to do that because they have vested interests. Some of them are property developers, some of them are corrupted by property developers, some of them are landlords, some of them have properties. They want to maintain a shortage of supply because it benefits them. And this is creating social unrest. And these politicians don't give a fuck. Sorry for my language. They just frankly don't give a shit because they know that maybe, well, I'll be out soon. I'll have a pension. I'll be living the life of Riley. I'll be okay. I'm all right, Jack type people. And they frankly don't care. It'll be somebody else's problem. And it's extremely worrying because these things start out as arson and then they escalate to more serious situations. Gareth, thanks so much for that super chat once again. For your information, Max, the IDF has confirmed that the soldiers responsible for the slaughter of 3 Israeli hostages will not be punished for it. Oh my goodness. Thanks for that. They won't be punished. I heard on the radio, I think it was on LBC earlier today or yesterday, how they were talking about how the soldiers need to be comforted. We need to support these soldiers who killed these 3 individuals. They weren't talking about the ones that the Pope was talking about. They were talking about the hostages that were killed, and they were saying how these soldiers are suffering at the moment as well. I think there are a lot of trigger-happy people. There are a lot of people in the IDF who have resentment towards the Palestinians. Some of them are probably settlers who believe that God has given them this land, and anyone who's on that land who isn't one of them needs to go by any means necessary. We've seen how the Israeli military have been working hand in glove with the settlers to push Palestinians off their land, and and the international community is dragging their feet here. Yes, we're starting to see a bit of movement, a bit of condemnation, but it seems all a little bit too late. Thanks so much, Gareth. Martin wants to be the Irish EU commissioner. Micheál Martin wants to be the next commissioner. Wonderful. What about somebody with competence? They condemn it all they like, but unless they actually do something about it, it's all lip service, yes. I'm really concerned. The Irish Freedom Party, National Party, and the Irish First Party have never protested outside the housing protest against the housing crisis, only against direct provision centres and against books in the libraries. Yes, they will, and I mentioned this before. Thanks for that informative comment, Chatty Rat. Yes, these far-right groups are not interested in actually dealing with the housing crisis. They're interested in protesting against asylum seekers. I mentioned before about how I think it was, I don't remember where it was in England, but there were protesters outside an asylum hotel, a hotel hosting asylum seekers, rioting outside. And I wanted to ask one of them, why are you not protesting outside the Home Office? Because it's the Home Office that decide where the people go. Why aren't you protesting, when it comes to Ireland, the housing crisis? Well, you should be protesting outside the Department of the Environment, is it? Or which department is responsible for housing? Is there a housing department? There should be a housing minister, a housing department. So you should be protesting outside that, demanding that more houses are built, so that when asylum seekers come in, they're not seen to be taking people's houses, quote unquote. Nick Wilson, welcome to the stream. You are late because it's just about to finish. I'm actually finishing a little bit late, but I want to say thank you so much to everyone who came on. Thanks so much for your support tonight. Thanks to everyone who came on. Wait a minute. I have one final story before we finish. This is just nuts. Just nuts. Daily Mail, this was Matthew Hulbert posted this. Daily Mail, UK builders go woke. Study finds 3/4 of tradesmen discuss their feelings with colleagues, while 2/3 shun the fried breakfasts and nearly half say they are history buffs. And this is woke. It's like, so if you discuss your feelings, that's woke. If you don't have a fry up in the morning, that's woke. And if you're interested in history, that's woke. So it seems to the Daily Mail, everything is woke. Whatever the hell that means. They just use this term so much that it has no meaning anymore. Gareth, thanks so much once again for that super chat. Very kind of you. Once again, thank you so much. Also, you've got Israeli property developers sharing posts on Facebook and X advertising new property lots in Gaza, for fuck's sake, referring to Gazans as invaders and scum. I saw those pictures online and I was hesitant to believe them, but it seems more and more people are saying, yeah, they are true. So there are pictures of rubble with drawings over the rubble, talking about how you can get a beachside resort or a beachside apartment coming soon in Gaza. This is disgraceful. Thanks so much, Gareth. I guess we're all woke. Yes, we're gonna lead. Bloody woke builders to keep up at night. Bacon, boobs, and bevy up, not woke bloke. They're touring Gaza, looking at the place, Max. My goodness, it's beyond disgraceful. There are people still buried in the rubble. They haven't been extracted from the rubble because the people of Gaza don't have the equipment. They don't have the means to continue to extract people to remove them from their graves at the moment. And the Israelis are what are they going to just bulldoze everything and build apartments on top of it? I don't know what to say. So guys, I want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you so much for check Discord, Max. I'll link the developer. Thank you so much, Gareth. So I want to say thanks to everyone, including Gareth, for the super chats. Thanks to everyone for coming on tonight. Thanks for smashing the like button. Thanks for all of your comments. I really appreciate your comments because I find them very informative. There's a lot of things I don't know, and it's great to have you guys on the stream. So guys, I want to say have a great week. I'll see you on Friday, same bat time, same bat channel. And before we go, we have our one for the road. It's an old, but it's a good one.
And that's why I'm moving all my factories to Singapore, which will mean great things for British business.
Sir Peter, thank you.
Yeah.
And with that, it's back to you in the studio. Thank you, Sir Peter.
Yeah.
Are you looking forward to having a nice Christmas this year?
Oh yeah, thanks to this government, I'm going to have a marvellous Christmas. You?
Well, no, thanks to this government, I won't have a marvellous Christmas.
Whatever do you mean? This Tory government has done wonderful things for us all. I mean, for example...
On the first day of Christmas, my Tory gave to me a large contract for PPE. On the second day of Christmas, my Tory gave to me 2 OBEs and a huge contract for PPE. On the third day of Christmas, my Tory gave to me 3-part slogans, 2 OBEs and a massive contract for PPE. On the fourth day of Christmas, my Tory gave to me 4 Lebedev parties, 3-part slogans, 2 OBEs and another contract for PPE. On the 5th day of Christmas, my Tory gave to me 5 Scotch eggs.
Hang on. It's not all rosy.
Isn't it?
Oh, no. Right, listen.
For Christmas 2020, the Tories gave to us 12 months of chaos, 11 million layoffs, 10 U-turns on Brexit, 9 Hancocks crying, 8 Jess 2 dying, 7 Goves are lying. It's all horrifying. 5 Scotch eggs. 4,000 food banks, 3rd lockdown, too many tears. But a lifetime peerage for me.
Hello, Sir Philip. How you doing, me old mucker? What's that? I'd love to come round. A new drink? A martini made from the tears of the poor. Oh, sounds beautiful. See you in a bit, mate.
You are so out of touch.
What? I'm a billionaire, mate.
Well done. So guys, have a great week. I'll see you on Friday, same bat time, same bat channel. As always, take care, good night, and see you soon.